Minister, thank you so much for your time. This has been an incredibly tense week, and the events of the last week have felt unprecedented, and this is a dangerous moment. I just want your reaction to the events of the last few days.
Well, my reaction is we moved from targeted terror to distributed terror, distributed and blind terror, and this is alarming. In the sense that what we are seeing is that Israel is perpetrating what qualifies as war crimes in a blatant way and without any immediate condemnation. What I'm shocked not to see is an immediate, overwhelming condemnation by all countries of the world, all nations of the world, in the sense what we have seen in the media in front of our own eyes is civilian people in the supermarkets or going about their business in the city of Beirut and anywhere else in Lebanon and dying or getting injured by the hundreds from this attack that was perpetrated deliberately in a clear, how do I say, contradiction with and disobedience to all laws, humanitarian international laws, or UN resolutions with respect to the relation between Israel and Lebanon. And accordingly, what we are seeing indeed is very alarming, because the world is silent on a very large scale war crime, and also distributed in a way that is not, how do I say, is not responsible, not just not responsible, is almost calling for creating chaos in the region.
Overnight, we did hear from the UK Foreign Secretary calling for a ceasefire, calling for a de-escalation. We heard Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, say the same. The French president has come out and said he expresses sorrow to the Lebanese people for what's happened. Do you think that is sufficient? Because your leaders are also heading to the UN. They are they're in New York at the moment, planning for the UN General Assembly. What are you asking the international community to do at this stage?
At this stage, we are losing faith with the international laws, with the international forums, with the ability of the UN to enforce any law and order at world scale and at regional scale. We would be asking, even though I'm not the one responsible for sharing these requests officially, but we would be certainly asking for the implementation of UN resolutions and for the implementation of the latest Security Council decision asking Israel to stop its attacks on the Palestinians and on the Lebanese.
Are you
and
hopeful,
I would be hopeful, if that happens, that we would obtain peace, at least from our side of the border, for sure, if that happens. And this has been now a year. And such requests have not been
Why do you
attended.
think that is? Because it has been almost 11 months of this concern about escalation.
It seems to me that there is not a well, on one side we have a situation in Israel where the government is not in a stable position, allowing it to reach the ceasefire that it must and should reach. But we also have another problem, which is that in the current international setting and the geopolitical scene, I am seeing that the international forces, Western forces and regional forces, are not forceful enough in putting pressure, especially on the government of Israel.
But that's what I want to get at. Why do you think that pressure is not coming? Because Tony Blinken, President Biden is saying, look, we're trying what we can do and trying to put pressure, but you know, they're not listening.
Well, I'm not here to analyze the root causes that are sometimes Sometimes they can be driven
But do you
by
think the Americans should be doing
by
more?
national priorities. And you have a situation in the US where it's currently the election race time, and there are lobbies that are very strong in the US, and where any change in the establishment's policy or stance on regional issues might have a bearing, and that is taken in consideration very seriously, because that can have a big bearing on the elections. And people it seems to me, are not willing to take these kinds of risks at this stage.
Minister, don't you think, though, your government also has a responsibility to rein in or put pressure on Hezbollah as well? Because when you speak to the Israelis, they're concerned about what's happening in the north of their country. 60,000 of their civilians
I understand
have been evacuated
where this question is coming from. At the same time, you have to understand that for the longest duration, for the longest times, it has been Israel that has been breaking the laws, whether the laws in terms of the relation with Lebanon, but also the laws in terms of the relation with the Palestinians and all the Arab nations. And we are in a position where we cannot stand against our own people, in a sense, and in a position where it is clear that Israel has to stop the aggression in order to reach stability at the border. It's unwise to think any other way, because there is the party that has the higher strength in this equation is military, at least, is Israel, as you see, and without them taking the decision to stop the aggression, I'm not seeing how we will reach a stable and peaceful solution.
The Israelis would say October 7 was launched on October 8.
It's been a year now. It's almost, at this stage, it's irrelevant.
But from October 8, they have been receiving the rockets daily from
the results
Hezbollah.
of the October 8 in terms of casualties, in terms of in terms of casualties and damages have thus far become negligible compared with the overwhelming damages that have occurred in the succeeding in the period after the event. And today we are looking at a 1 year of useless conflict, where Israel is not making any accomplishments with this conflict other than total destruction for the Palestinian people, and not only the people themselves, but also the infrastructure and everything that has to do with life is being destroyed. And I'm not seeing how this is good for any population in the region, whether it is the Palestinians, the Lebanese, even the citizens of today living in Israel.
Minister, you're the energy minister. Are you worried that this conflict could escalate, and that Lebanon's energy sector could also be targeted through cyber warfare or otherwise?
It's, I mean, yes, I don't want to sound overly alarming, but the escalation that we are seeing is worrisome. As I said earlier, we went from a targeted attacks to almost, I want to call them distributed attacks and blind attacks, because these explosions happens with the perpetrator not knowing where those devices necessarily are, because there's old generation devices. So it means that yes, we went to a place that is much more uncertain and much less safe, and the cyber, this is a dual cyber and explosion implantation in the supply chain attack. So with the warfare of this nature, yes, we can worry about attacks on infrastructure using cyber warfare, whether in the power sector, the telecom sector, the healthcare sector, the water sector, or all sectors. But obviously, escalating in this direction is not good for neither Lebanon nor the neighbor of Lebanon, whether Palestine or the Israeli population. It's not good for anyone. So I'm not seeing where we're going with all this. And this is why it's imperative for international powers to step in a much more assertive way, in a much more aggressive way, and put a stop to all this.
What assurances can you give to the Lebanese people, because in terms of contingency plans that you might be taking to ensure that there isn't some kind of cyber warfare or attacks on the energy sector? They're already reeling from daily blackouts here.
Okay, so there is a part that is resilient in the energy sector in Lebanon. As you know, a lot of the power supply, a majority of the power supply, is attended to by two sources: the generators, private generators, even though they are very nocive or they are very disruptive for health and purposes, but they are distributed in nature, which makes it difficult to target them all at once. So that gives you a certain resilience in terms of power needs, meeting power needs. The other source also is solar capacity that's installed in a distributed way on many rooftops and real estate plots, and that again is relatively more resilient. Now we have to at the same time build more redundancy in the way we attend to emergency measures. So, for example, the energy needs of the healthcare sector, the energy needs of the ambulances that will go and attend to the attacked populations, the water needs for those key sectors and key users. Typically, we have factored, as part of the emergency response plan that the government has launched, we have factored some initiatives in this direction.
Minister, are you personally terrified about a potential war looming over this country?
It's a good question to ask. I happen to have been raised during the Lebanese Civil War. And so we, in a sense, were used to seeing many big atrocities. I remain always hopeful that we can rise from these challenges stronger and more united. We have seen with the recent attack that was really, as I said, a big war crime, and that was uncalled for. We have seen the Lebanese unite despite their internal conflicts and internal differences. I want to say maybe not all, but the large and vast majority, even with the groups that are today outside the government or that are in the opposition. They have shown support for their compatriots, and these are positive outcomes that one can build on in order to try to rebuild a union that makes Lebanon rise stronger from these aggressions.
And Minister, just finally, what message do you have for global leaders who are currently meeting in New York to discuss this issue, but also at the General Assembly next week?
World leaders happen to have a lot of leverage, whether in the supply of ammunition or in the supply of financial support to the state of Israel. It is in their hands to use this leverage to put a stop to these atrocities and to start going in the right direction, a direction that allows to instill the peace and stability in the region rather than complete chaos and risking everybody's lives and escalation into a much broader conflict.
Minister, thank you so much for your time.